Good morning and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show this morning, the 20th of August 2021. My name is Finfulu Falodu and I'm welcoming you to the show this morning. It's our pleasure to welcome you this morning to this morning's edition of the show, the final one for this week. I know, right? It's almost unbelievable that already the week has come to an end, and looking at the calendar and looking at the dates, just dawned on me August is almost gone too. Wow, it's time sure waits for no one. So and that's one of the reasons why we ensure that your morning time built is properly and well invested in a show that helps you get started off to a great start in the morning. And with that, we're talking about the Good Morning Education Show. So welcome once again to the show this morning. Welcome to our tribe, our viewers. If you're joining us for the first time, we are super pumped and excited to have you with us this morning. You're welcome to the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You get the drift. Just tell somebody and spread the news. On the Good Morning Education Show, we take discussions in and around education, everything that has to do with education. You find us there. We have analysis, we have topical analysis taken by our team of expert analysts in the field. And one of the segments we also have on the show is the grant for the day before we go into our topic for the day. And today we have a really interesting topic for you, a topic that cuts across and that affects every one of us. I'm sure you're waiting for that. But before we go into the topic for today, we will be going through the headlines in the dailies this morning. So our first headline. Our first headline is FG, okay, Model College parents accuses Lagos officials, principals of fraud. The coalition of chairmen and executive of Lagos State Model Colleges Parents Forum has said the authorities of the school are spending the funds provided by the government and the feeding fees that parents paid on personal needs. The chairman of the coalition made this known on Wednesday at a meeting in Ikeja, where they petitioned the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly over the increment in the feeding fee of students thousand to 125,000. That is a whole 100,000 added to it. And considering what the economy is, I mean, that I wonder when we hear about increments in government schools and even in some private schools. I wonder what formula, if at all, there is a formula to calculate that increment. I really do wonder. But as it has come up now, well, seriously, this is something that needs to be addressed, and this is something that needs to be looked into by both the school and the parents forum, the coalition of chairmen of model schools, and that they are able to come to a conclusion on this matter. Because like we always say, at the end of this tick, it is the students that are affected. The next headline: Ekiti school vows to fill missing link in curriculum, vocational training. The principal, Crown International Secondary School, Odo Ado-Ekiti, Mr. Sunday Ojo, has said the school will fill the missing link in provision of international standard education in Ekiti State. Ojo said the school would also provide second to none vocational training for its pupils in partnership with Crown Polytechnic, saying it will provide the leverage for the smooth running of vocational courses, just as engineers and instructors from the Polytechnic will provide training and support at all times. Um, well, one of the things we know about Ikiti State is that it's the fountain of knowledge, and that I hear this thing that there's hardly any family in Ikiti State that doesn't have a professor. Well, that stands to be proven, but this is a good move by the Crown School, International Secondary School, which I believe has a polytechnic, which the Crown Polytechnic. It's a good move for them to, especially that vocational training aspect of it, and bringing in instructors from the Polytechnic is really a good way to go. That's hands-on, that's experienced, and then we hope that the students will also get experiential training and learning as they go on. So kudos to Crown International Secondary School, and more muscles to their arms as they implement this. Why Edo Best is a success. Obaseki, the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, has said the Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation, that's Edo Best program, was successful in the state because of a deliberate policy to build the capacity of teachers and make learning experience fun for pupils. He stated this during a special episode of EdTech Monday with the theme Back to School, but is it back to learning? Organized by MasterCard Foundation's Young Africa Works in collaboration with the World Bank Group and broadcasts on CNBC Africa. I particularly like the theme back to school, but is it back to learning? Yeah, that's a question that schools need to ask, and that schools need to frequently evaluate. So students will be resuming back in school next month. And while they return to school, the academic session is expected to run as it normally does, but with the students really be learning. And I also like what the governor said, that there is a deliberate policy to build the capacity of teachers and make learning experience fun for pupils. And put those two things together, and you have an education system that is delivering. Once you increase teacher capacity, they are able to give more to the students, and the students are also having fun while learning. I mean, it can only get better from there. And so Edo Best, don't rest on your oars, keep being the best and keep delivering top-notch education to the students in Edo State. Moving on. Employ trustworthy Nigerians as security agents, NUT. Secretary General, Nigerian Union of Teachers, Dr. Mike Ikeene, has advised the federal government of Nigeria to employ more trustworthy Nigerians as security agents while reacting to the incessant case of kidnapping of school children, especially in the north. He told the correspondent of Punch in an interview that if security agencies could be trustworthy, it will be easy to tackle the insurgency and banditry activities. Okay, so in a way, I get where the Secretary General is coming from, and talking about maybe security information not being leaked, because that's something, it's not just in our climb, it happens everywhere, where there's a leak, there is a loophole in the security fabric, and so those that are supposed to be fought against are getting this information leaked to them. So I believe this is what the Secretary General is driving at when he says trustworthy Nigerians to be employed as security agents. But I'm also going to add that the work of security agents and security agencies will be easier if the government is up, active, and um, is delivering what it's supposed to deliver in that area. So if they would not be fighting, they would be putting in their resources and their ability to match to match what they're fighting against. It won't be like putting a trailer on a bike and asking it to just move it somehow. It may eventually be able to move it, but then that machinery that is moving the truck is likely to break down if at all it's recovered at the end of that exercise. So yeah, and it's also a call to NUT to ensure that in the schools we're turning out trustworthy citizens. We talked about raising patriots. Last week, I believe, we talked about raising patriots, and we saw the role that the school plays. So, if teachers will be part of helping the country to raise trustworthy Nigerians, trustworthy patriots, then NUT should champion that cause. And I hope they are getting this message or will get this message somehow that the onus also lies on them. It's not left to one person. It's a collective, um, it's collective efforts by us all. Moving on, Rivers to refund UTME registration fees. The Rivers State government said it has begun the refund of the 2021 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination registration fees to students in all public schools across the state. The permanent secretary of the State Ministry of Education, Mr. Chidi Adiele, disclosed this in a statement issued in Port Harcourt on Tuesday. The statement read, "This serves to inform the general public that the Rivers State government, through the State Ministry of Education, has since commenced the refund of the 2021 UTME registration fees to students in all public schools in the state. Accordingly, principals of schools under reference who are yet to submit bank details of their students, as communicated earlier to them, should please do so without delay." So that last part of it actually answers a question that was on my mind, like how will every student who registered for the UTME be reached? But if they have been asked, if their account details have been requested for, it means it goes straight to the account of either the students or their parents or their guardians, whoever is in charge there. And well, it's a good thing that the registration fees is being refunded, but I think that a better way or a better approach to this in the first instance would have been for the government to register the pupils or the students for the exam. There probably are students who missed out on registration because their parents couldn't meet up with payment deadlines. So rather than leaving that and saying, "Oh, go pay first and then we will refund," it would have been maybe giving more students. I really do not have the statistics. I can't say, but in situations like this, we just extrapolate some things that there are most likely some students who missed out of the exams because they couldn't make up the payment deadline in the first place. But it's still a good thing that the government is refunding the registration fees to those who paid earlier. Who knows what that will do for families or even for the students themselves. And well, going on, I think we should be looking at a situation where families are able to sustain their basic needs, not just waiting for handouts or handdowns from the government or private individuals, whichever one it is. And good morning and welcome to the show, Mr. Rotimi Eyitayo.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Morning. Okay, so we're moving on to the next headline. Chrisland seeks government support for private schools. Chrisland Schools Limited has called on the government to support private schools across the country. Speaking at the Zoom meeting, the managing director of Chrisland Schools, Mrs. Ibironke Adeyemi, said private schools were burdened with many challenges which the government refused to ameliorate. She explained that Chrisland had schools in 6 different locations, and it was difficult managing the schools due to double taxes, unfriendly government policies, exorbitant cost of land, to mention a few. And I know that maybe one other thing we can easily add to that list is cost of electricity, uh, cost of running the schools or of powering the schools, electricity, and if they have to even go by way of solar, that's also a huge amount. And sometimes when we castigate private schools and say, oh, they're too expensive, they're too expensive, these are some of the things that go into it. They imagine you have 6 locations and you're paying taxes on each location. If they are all within the same school, within the same state rather, their taxes should be going to one source. So why would they at with the different locations or the different branches, excuse me, of the school have to be doubly taxed like that? Why not tax them as an entity, and then policies that are not friendly and all of that. And really, if we are, it looks like, or it seems that the private school sector is a stronger bone and a stronger the stronger arm of education compared to private and public. The private is still stronger, no matter what the standard is, no matter what their class is. What's the public schools are lacking, the private schools are providing it. And I think the least that the government can do for them is to ensure that they are able to run smoothly. And if all of those things are maybe subsidized for them, or they get some of the services, even maybe they get some exemptions, it will bring down school fees, and eventually everybody's the happier for it. Students can go to school, you know. Hopefully they are listening, those in charge are listening, and not just listening, they are able to do something about this. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Nothing. I'm, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to the next headline. Security crisis. Kaduna government reopens schools for basic certificate exam. Ask students to wear mufti. The Kaduna state government has approved the resumption of students in junior secondary school 3. This is to enable the students to participate in the forthcoming basic education certificate examination, the BECE. The development was announced in a statement by Shehu Muhammad, Kaduna Commissioner for Education, on Wednesday, August 18. The GS3 students have been granted permission to resume school to participate in the BECE scheduled for August 21 to September 6, 2021. And but the commissioner said the students can resume with effect from Wednesday, August 18, adding that they should appear in Mufti. This means that the security issue has not been handled yet. And I think this is a risk, because now the information is out there. We all know now. I'm not in Cardinal State, and I know that students in Cardinal State are resuming. GSS 3 students will be resuming to be able to take their exams, even though they will be in Mufti. I think it's still a risk that these students are being exposed to. Um, a follow up to this should be what the government, what the state government is doing to ensure that the students are kept safe from as they commute from their homes to the schools and from the schools back to their homes. It's not enough to just say they should wear mufti. Children are on the streets all the time. Children in mufti are on the streets and keep being exposed to security challenges all the time. So yes, them, as much as we want them not to be disenfranchised or not having the privilege to take the exam as they should, also their security should be taken into consideration. And really, I think it should be the first thing or the major thing that everyone thinks about and makes a call for at this time. And next headline: Achievers University shuts indefinitely as students protest power outage. The Achievers University or WOC in Ondo State has suspended academic activities indefinitely following the protest that rocked the institution over prolonged power outage. The private institution also ordered the immediate vacation of the school premises and halls of residence by the students in order to prevent breakdown of law and order. And this just ties to what Chrisland, the issue raised by Chrisland about government helping to ameliorate some of the challenges that private institutions are coming up against. I know that private universities try as much as they can to ensure that the school or the system is running and keeps running. And that's why some people will say that life in private universities is not like it's not the real thing because the students they have power 24/7, they have water running, everything is just beautiful and fine for them. And if Achievers University is faced with this issue, it really must be a serious one for them, a major issue for them, and for them to have had to shut down because of the threat of breakdown of law and order. I'm hoping that they have um, a solution to this issue speedily and that they can resume their normal activities. And welcome. I've been joined by two more of our analysts. Welcome to the show this morning, Olushola Olumide.
Good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone in the house.
And welcome to the show this morning, Omotola Akinshola.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, let's take our last headline, I believe. Federal government bemoans migration of teachers to other professions. Before even going into the body of the news, I think sometimes the words that are used in the headlines, they're very interesting. And, you hear things like the government decries, government appeals. Now, the federal government is bemoaning. Okay, let's see what it is that the body of the news actually says. The federal government has raised the alarm over the high number of teachers leaving the teaching profession for other plum jobs. Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Wajiba, raised the alarm during a visit to the housemates of Teachers Niger reality TV show in Abuja on Thursday. Wajuba, who described teaching as the base of human development, hailed the organizers of the reality TV show, saying that the program would attract more people to the teaching profession. He said the number of housemates in the show, though small, still represented a divergent interest in the teaching profession. Well, this feels like "are we a joke to you" kind of statement to me. Really, with all that is going on with teachers in the country, with all of the salaries that have been owed, with them having to, if there's any body of professionals in this country that does not have the right work conditions, it's teachers, especially in public schools. You see some of them in having to teach under trees. You see some of them in classrooms that have no ceilings, so when the sun comes out, the full effect of the heat is on them. You see some of them in rooms that are not, the floors are as is sandy and all of that, and then you have the same person having an offer of a better job, and then you don't want them to take it. How does that really work? What would your comment be on this headline? Olumide Olushola, let's start from you.
Yes, thank you, Fee. I'm happy you read the body of the whole thing. They spoke about plum job. I think government should be the last person to bemoan teachers' migration. They should put their money where their mouth is. There is no how. A drowning man cannot rescue another drowning man. Somebody that is not well paid, is not feeling fine, he now sees a better job somewhere. He or she, does he need a seer to tell him how to move? It's as simple as you pay teachers more and see the effects. These guys are spending it, not even in these days that they have to resume so early and close so late. And we keep multiplying a lot of style. Okay, let's do this one now. We bring up this one, Excel, another one, training. But the guys are not being well paid. In fact, I think the recruitment they did in 2020, by the time they got their appointment letter, some resigned on the spot. They didn't bother to enter after going through the recruitment process and only to find out that your salary is just a little above 60,000 in 30 days. With present reality. So the government they are not in the best position to complain about teachers' migration. How will you pay somebody? Funny enough, I was telling somebody lately, I said those of us in their institution, we have it better because NUC appear to have a robust competitive edge. That what a school soldier earns in my institution, a graduate teacher does not earn. I mean a school start holder that enters as a level 3 officer is a clerical staff. He earns more than the graduate teacher. So if somebody who is a graduate sees somebody who is a school start holder earning more than him, how does he feel? So I think they should stop paying lip service. More teachers will migrate. I tell you. Just change the package, pay them better, and you see the narrative will change automatically. Teachers, we talk about teachers who have been in heaven. Okay, if the teacher doesn't get to heaven eventually, what is his fate? Let him enjoy why he's here. And you know, when you are dealing with young people, apart from teaching, especially in public school, see, let me bring this on board. This is what I've been doing for some time, but it became heavier on me earlier this year that I needed to flag a group, and I target orphans and govern. You need to see one of the primary school we visited this month. Come and see primary school pupils wearing tattered clothes. Some of them without sandals. Teacher would have been passionate and empathic to help those children. Don't buy uniform for them, buy sandal for them. But when the teachers themselves are not well paid, Some of those classes, those children are sitting on the floor. I have a teacher who was forced to construct bench for the student just because she couldn't withstand the sight of these students sitting on the floor. Is it not because she eats remain? Now she get money buy bench for students. If you are still struggling to stay afloat, do you rescue another man that is drowning? Okay, it is well. Thank you.
Thank you for that insight. It really can be, it can get to a point where it feels very overwhelming. But we will. Does Omotala have a comment on this?
Yeah, I think Mr. Olushila has already said it all. And the only thing I have to add is that I really am hoping to see some like concrete step being taken instead of like you said, Finn, to that demands and all of these nonsense adjectives that they use for some of these headlines. Is like, what are they going to do about it? That's the only thing I don't see in this whole thing. Is what are they going to do about it to address the shortage? So yeah.
Thank you, and welcome to the show this morning, Ugochi Obidigo, the safety chick.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
See the clear
Good morning.
voice.
Okay, that wasn't clear. One thing that really I would even like to point out here is this teacher's reality show. I read where the convener said he decided to start it at the same time that BB Niger started to evaluate to see which would be more popular, and his answer is as clear as day now. We're not even aware of it. What stations is it showing on? When is it showing? This is a lot
But that's a wrong. Will I use the word wrong? But that's overly out of place. Whether it's even publicized in the station, you can't match up a new concept, something that is going with something with consistent followership. What's the richness of the content? There are many things we sometimes need to also set the record straight. You don't say because something is education based that all of a sudden people should hop on board and prefer education to entertainment. That's not scientific. That's just wishful thinking. What you should stay in your lane and appeal to your audience. There are certain things that we should not rule against. There are principles for business. There are principles for launching brands and products. And so it's not even something he has pushed to the teaching or education community to talking about viewership in that extent. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I think sometimes we overrate ourselves. Some people, that statement, if I know the person, I'll call him to order. That's the wrong thinking. That means he's not even doing his own work. You understand? You launch something, no solicitation, all the people who matter in education, how many of them did you partner with? So do your stuff and let it grow. If a miracle happens, go down, fine. But don't say you did it because you want to see popularity. That means he himself is not wise. I doubt the veracity of that is true or whatever. I'm sorry, I those kind of things piss me off. Because come on, that's not education based. That's what it's not an insult. It's nonsense. As in, there's no sense. It's none of sense. Do you understand?
Instead of trying that experiment, I think more should have been put into publicity and letting people know that there is this show.
These things take time. These things take time.
Yeah, but any station where it's being aired. I don't know.
I'm sorry,
I just wanted to watch, but well, we can't link up with them. And hopefully the second time around or the second outing will be much better. I think we should just go to our topic for today. Okay, there's some interruption there.
Yeah, I think we should go to the conversation of the day. Ugochi, good morning. Great to hear you. handling and overcoming conflict. That statement you made, Finn, is actually something that can be likened to conflict.
Okay. So it can lead to conflict, but it doesn't have to
It
lead
is
to
conflict.
resolution.
It is conflict.
Okay,
But
so what exactly is conflict? What exactly is
my
conflict?
goodness. You can ask the other people to answer.
Okay. Ugochi, let's come to you. What is conflict? Because I have been accused now of trying to start a conflict on the show this morning. So, what is conflict?
Okay, so conflict. This is not a dictionary definition. Conflict is basically causing a it's anything that causes a confrontation or or disunity in trying to resolve a situation. So it's basically that they both parties do not agree, they're not able to come to a middle ground or an agreement on that issue. And so, if not properly managed, it could deteriorate into a conflict. And having a conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. What is a bad thing is if we're not able to handle it with the right wisdom and tact. Because the truth is, because we all come from several backgrounds, we've grown up with several schools of thoughts or principles. We may not all believe or act in the exact same way because we are not robots. But the ability to now should I say disagree peacefully without it deteriorating to harm or deteriorating into a really bad situation is actually a skill. So conflict in itself is not it's not a bad thing. It's the way it's handled that could be a bad thing. Over to you, Finn.
No, right. Thank you, Gochi. I mean, when people hear conflicts, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, tearing of clothes, hitting bottles on the floor. Papa, there is a lot of exchange of blows and all of that. But yeah, just as you have pointed out, conflict is not necessarily violent, and conflict is not necessarily negative. There could be some positive sides to conflict. And I would ask Omotola, what are the likely positive effects of, or yeah, what are likely positive effects that we can have from conflicts?
Thank you, Fee. I think there can be some good in conflict. So, for instance, one of the favorite quotes that I've had to like dwell on, sit on, think on, ruminate on, like had to do with creating conflict with myself, which is by Joe Polish, which says, "Be willing to destroy everything in your life that is not excellent." And I'll say it again: be willing to destroy everything in your life that is not excellent. That is definitely conflict, right? And so for me, some of the positivity, like going from the lens of that quote, is this: like saying that, you know what, I know that I can be more, I know I can do more, create more, have more, give more, but I am not there. So I am going to fight these demons or whatever you want to label, these laziness, whatever those characteristics or habitat that are not in alignment with where I want to go or the things I want to do. And so it will force you to sit up. The conflict will force you to make better choices. It will force you to be willing to look at other side, other perspective, not just your own, and be like sort of like saying no, my way or the how I way. I also think that another positive thing that conflict can do for you is giving you the power of reflecting over time, knowing that okay, yes, in this instance, at that particular level of awareness, I made this blunder or I didn't do this well, but now I know better, so I'm going to do better. And so having that tug of war and being willing to go through that process and not just running away from it or hiding from it, I think it will birth a greater version of yourself in whatever area of your life that you focus on that conflict that you really want to do. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And I while well, some of the research I had done some earlier time on conflict resolution. Um, uh, it says that individuals who are able individuals who are able to resolve conflicts are often excellent mediators. Is this always true? I'm taking that to Mr. Itayo.
Individuals
Who are
I want to
able
get
to
the last.
individuals who are able to resolve conflicts very well are often good mediators.
Mm, as that could cause a conflict. Why would well, it depends. Sometimes we can assume that all conflict would come out the same way. There are different scenarios or contexts to conflict. There are triggers to conflict, and then there are different parties. So you have the neutral party, you have the innocent party, you have the culprit. In some cases, you have the misunderstood, you have the non-aligned. So it's always you cannot totally expect that, because let me give an example, and also cultural context. If it's Africa, if it's Nigeria, if it has to do with marital concerns, right, the one who says he resolves conflict might approach the conflict on ground from a faith-based perspective,
Mhm.
and a faith-based perspective might not totally bring the best of resolution. I mean, contextual. Do you understand? Because even in faith, you have to be two that can work together. You understand? You have to agree to work together. So, yes, it could help if the person is able to understand what it means to mediate. Mediation does not necessarily mean that you judge. Are you following me?
Yeah.
In some cases, it might just be you want to arrest the emotional leakage at hand. So emotions are leaking here, emotions are leaking there, people are feeling not heard. A mediator can actually bring what we call a situation on ground to say, okay, so what is the grievance or what is the issue? And then now propose the next phase or the next form of engagement, so that number one, you have objectivity, there's equity, and also sometimes I've seen situations where people mediate conflicts, and truth be told, there is a solution somehow temporal, and then one of the parties doesn't feel that justice was served as expected, even though there was mediation. And then people take the laws into their hands, or sometimes people do some dangerous things to themselves. Do you get? Um, so I feel that, yes, I hope I've not gone out of the question, but I feel that you're able to resolve your conflict within your own space and sphere of control, and does not automatically qualify you to be a mediator, because sometimes you need to be very skilled and qualified. So personal resolutions can mean you can sort yourself out. Do you get? But when it comes to other people's matter and the context on ground, you might need some level of professionalism in it.
All right, thank you. When you say some level of professionalism, I look at our society, I look at our context and how everybody who is maybe about 5 years or a little more older than the parties involved or is in a position of authority is automatically expected to be wiser, to have more, to be in a position to resolve conflict. So the moment that you see issues happen among siblings, and the older one is automatically blamed, like you were here and you allow things to run. So when you talk about professionals, professional conflicts or professional peace mediators, I think about it and I'm wondering, okay, is our society ready for that? But while we get ready for the professional aspect of it, I know that there is a model of conflict resolution that was propagated by Thomas Kilman, and it has that essentially every individual has a basic, or has their let's talk about the conflict resolution styles now, and look at, so there are five of them, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we're five. Hopefully we can talk about this five and help people see what they should do or what they should be improving on in their style of conflict resolution. So you could be collaborating, you could be avoiding, you could be competing, you could be accommodating, and you could be compromising. When conflicts happen, either domestically in the home, between siblings, between parents and children, in love relationships, in platonic friendships, in the workplace, wherever it is, individuals are more likely to pick one of these conflict resolution styles. So I'll start with Olumide Olushola and say that, is there a best of
Thank
five that
you.
man has come up with?
Thank you. Looking at the first four, I think the five are needed somehow, somewhere along the line. But I think the last one, which is compromise, serves a lot of situation better. Ability to shift ground, and at least for peace to reign. So it is. If you are dealing with an outsider, maybe place of work, maybe in the community or neighbor, maybe avoidance could help. But imagine if it is a spousal thing. If it's a spousal thing, you can't continue to avoid your spouse, and you almost sleep on the same bed and whatever. So I think compromise goes a long way. And for me, if it's not something that's not going to dent you or affect your value system, I want to believe compromise serves a lot. I shift ground a little, you shift ground a little, and then we're able to get to a middle ground. And of course, like a project director just said, the issue of a mediation. Of course, if there's any tool a professional mediator will use, it is the issue of compromise. Okay, you shift a little, don't just be too rigid. In the case at hand, you wouldn't say you don't have any fault. The other party couldn't say he or she doesn't have any fault. So we won't pack it on the head of somebody. So you shift a little, I shift a little. At least like that, peace we reign. And I think trying to jump on what the project director just spoke about, at times your relationship with the people at hand will determine your level of engagement. Because I always believe in emotional connection. If people going to dance to your tune, you've got to connect with them emotionally. They wouldn't want to see you as you are being biased or subjective. I give you a very good example. There is this girl brought to me. The parent brought her. So I excused the parent. I needed to talk to the girl. And what happened, needed to listen to her, try to massage her ego a little, tell her to calm down, there is all that you just talk to me. She looked at me, and after some time she said, of all the people they've taken me to, I think you're about the only person making sense. I laughed, and that made her to open up. But the other people felt, of course, how will you blame the parent for the child? It doesn't mean the parent cannot be wrong. So I think compromise, eventually we needed to compromise. You have to shift ground as father, as mother, as the child has to shift ground. In the place of work too. And at times, as a boss, especially when you are leading a team or a unit, there are certain people in the place of either you met them there or they are older, or maybe because they are closer to the oga patapata, you need to handle them with gloves because they are bearing tongues. At times, the way you deal with others, you will not deal with them. It's not because you are partial, it's because of the thorns in their body. Yes, if you lay your hand on them heavily, you will eat them, but the thorns will pierce your hand too. So you have to look at people, look at their personality, maybe look at their connections too, and look at their attitude to life and their reason level. And based on that, you will shift ground. The style you use for A, you may not use it for B. Of course, we have the concept of McGregor X and Y. Some need stick, some need carrot. It's not because you are trying to favor somebody, but situation at hand, I tell you, would demand you are very wise. And for me, I think I would think compromise as the pick of the pack. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And I I usually ex- enjoy the analogies that you bring into your comments. And while you were speaking, we had Mrs. Okenfo Ajayi join us. You're welcome to the show this morning.
Thanks, everyone. Good morning. My apologies for coming in late. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, Madam Kiki.
Good morning.
So, Omotola, I'll take the same question to you. How do people even find their conflict resolution styles?
Hello, I didn't get that question, Fee.
Okay, the
Hello.
question is actually for Omotola. Like,
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. That's okay.
yes, how do people find their conflict resolution styles?
I'll say sometimes it might happen by trial and error because I don't believe that you're stuck with one conflict resolution style all your life. I think depending on the situation, the circumstance, and the level of emotional chargedness that goes with it, that might determine what kind of conflict resolution style you show up with. So I'll say maybe it might and it starts with pattern identification on the noticing your pattern over time. Like I always say, tell people, I don't examine life is not what living, right? So it's this idea of like saying like how do I react to situations, to things like that? What makes my spirit boil? What kind of topic or what kind of situations make me just want to be combative and not collaborative? Or in what situation do I prefer collaborative conflict resolution approach than combative? So I think taking the time to really see your pattern and say, okay, what triggers me? And in those triggering, does it trigger me to be more of the collaborative or the other five competitive and the rest of those other ones? So I think it's about really just taking the time to understand you, the things that really matter to you, and how you attach the value to them that now determine the kind of resolution style that you choose in those different situations.
All right, thank you for that. And I'll bring in this to Mrs. Ajayi. In our society, the older person, they say that if the younger person offends the older person, the younger person says sorry. If it's the older person that offends the younger person still says sorry. So,
They
um,
say it in Yoruba.
I'm interpreting it for
This
her.
this is a
So
global show. This is
That's
a global
that's
show.
that
We have
thank
that's
a
not
global
you.
audience.
interpretation now.
No, 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 no.
You first
We
say
have
that
a
you
global
interpret.
audience.
I believe that Cake is a global individual. Even in
Eh,
location, she's global. In
So that's
name,
why
she's
she need, we need
global.
to.
In
That's why we
work,
need to
she's
say it
global. In
in
client
English.
base, she's global. In money denomination and account, she's global.
Amen,
So
amen, amen.
It looks to me like you're actually spoiling for conflict this morning.
I
Like
know, right?
from the beginning, you're trying to instigate conflict. What's going on here?
Oh
So
my.
can we all guess his conflict resolution style right now?
Exactly, exactly. Dr. Otola. Oh my.
Okay, so when we have conflicts happening from top down. That's from it's the person who has an advantage, a parent,
Uh-huh.
a boss, a superior in any way, that is the offending party.
Uh-huh.
If the younger person speaks up and says, I don't like what you did, they don't have to say disrespectful, but they come around
Uh-huh.
and maybe a subordinate tells their boss, I didn't find what you said very funny, or I don't like the way you approach this thing, or the boss is even obviously wrong and the subordinate points it out, and it becomes a full blown out issue. What can be done in such a situation, and what should the response of superiors or the top, what should their response be when it comes to conflict resolution?
Okay, the reality is that for any conflict resolution strategy, you need to have a lot of emotional intelligence, right? And emotional intelligence varies depending on where you are and who you're dealing with. So, for one, don't believe that in a professional environment, so let's start with the workplace environment, when there's something wrong and somebody is unhappy, we're talking culture here, right? So, when you look at culture, then you can't, as the boss or the superior, insist that you're right all the time, because you're already creating a toxic work environment, and that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the boss, it doesn't help the goals of the organization, it doesn't help the employees, it doesn't help anybody, right? So they need to go on emotional intelligence courses and just understand how to deal with workplace conflict. And another thing is for the subordinates, right? So there's a way that you would talk to your boss, and a place where you talk to your boss. So again, it comes with emotional intelligence. If my boss, for example, does something that I don't find particularly great, I'm not going to call them out in the open, right? Especially if I'm looking at the Nigerian setting, I'm not going to do that. But I can go back later and say, oh, can I have a conversation with you about something? And I can pull them back to that one. Or if there's a good HR in the organization, then you can take it to HR, right? In fact, if the HR was there, HR will call, and if their hands are not tied to their back, if it's really HR who knows their job, right? So nobody is right all the time, and I think it's ridiculous for anybody to think that they're right all the time, right? So I would say emotional intelligence will come into play again. How to talk to your boss, when to say it, how to say it, and time and manner in which to bring it up. But then in the home, or in a non-formal setting, let me not say in the home, in a non-formal setting, I would say honestly the same rules apply, to be honest. So I have children, and these are not even my biological children, who I consider as my children, and we're close, right? And they would come to me and say, oh, Auntie K, they call me Auntie K, this thing that you said, I don't Kobadu, or it didn't work for me. And I'm like, oh, really? Explain it. But then that's my personality, right? Because I like to learn, and I truly believe that there's always room for growth. So I don't see any reason why, even my children at home and my husband. So let me not even say because I'm a woman. If my husband does something and the kids they don't agree with it, they let us know they don't agree with it, and we sit down and have a conversation around it. I'm very big on conversations, and so anybody who is listening, I would say you need to have conversations, because you will get to a place where you cannot control everything. And if you have not developed, it's almost like what we're talking about 2 days ago, right? When you need to develop the skills to deal with things. If you haven't developed those skills, then how do you handle it? How do you manage it and come out on top? Right? So it's always important that we develop all of these skills. So no, Fee, I'm sorry, not Fee. Yeah, Fee. I keep mixing up all these names. We should listen to people. We can't lord it over everybody, because then people will just say yes to us and walk away. And if something is going wrong, then we have no way of knowing it, right? So that's how what I would say on that lovely question that you asked me. Back to you, Fee.
Thank you. That's absolutely, and the end part of it for me is everything. If we're not open to taking feedback and people already realize that, they'll just avoid you in conflict. And if they can, sometimes we think in the home, there's no choice, but children can beat their time and just count down to when they will be out and say, well, it will be left to you and your issues. I'll be out of here very soon. And so I'll take this to Mr. Itayo. How does personality, individual personalities, does a personality type make one person or some people more prone to conflicts than others, or to instigating conflicts than others?
So everybody is witnessing the fact that you are trying to start a fire. because you're asking me
How?
conflicting questions about
How?
conflicting personalities in managing conflicting issues on conflict management. All right. So your personality definitely can position you um, to be prone. Now, I would say would cause, can position is the word. And why am I saying that? The reason is because when you look at individuals and you look at people, you find out that the reason why you need to understand your personality is not so that you can just manage yourself, but you also know how your disposition can be with other people because not everyone understands how to manage you or work with you or relate with you. You understand? Sometimes when you're traveling and you have a package that is sensitive or fragile, you tell them to wrap it in a special way, and then they'll say, please handle with care. The reason is that you need to sometimes help people understand you better. But we all live within our rules and say, this is who I am, this is what I don't like. Once you are interacting with the outside world, you need to recognize that your personality might position you in the way of conflict, especially when you have contrast and conflicting personalities, which also is the case for people getting to understand other people's personality so that they know how best to manage themselves regarding their personality. There are different things that could happen. Take, for example, you have a boss who is a compliant kind of person, steady, compliant, conservative, private. And then you have a very outspoken, outgoing, strong, dominant subordinate. And then you're having a meeting. And then you're saying, so what do you guys think? And then other people are saying, well, I think this, and then the other person that's strong and it's dominant says, that doesn't make sense. And it's not insulting anybody. It just says, that doesn't make sense. So those type of situations, right, puts you in that condition where you might be bringing about conflict. So I would say that yes, your personality can position you, but it's not the cause. It's the management or mismanagement of yourself and others, or the miseducation with others. Sometimes you need to set boundaries, but you also need to make the boundaries known. So it's not enough to have philosophies and principles. You might need to nurture people along that philosophy. You understand? I'll say this last example. While I was in secondary school, there's a lady that was very good in academics. She sits in the front seat, but then she has a tribal mark, and she was very antisocial. Very antisocial. If you touch her table, she will clean it with tissue. That's how bad it was. So there was one day, I think I was told by the teacher to do something in front. So I leaned on her table. I said, please, 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 please. And then she cleaned it. I was so, so, so angry that day that I did something I didn't like. I actually did like this, but this wasn't like I was trying to talk about a tribal man. And that thing really hit her. But she probably maybe has been told that if you talk to a boy, if you touch a boy, you get pregnant or something like that. Because why would I lean on your table and then you're cleaning the table as if it's dirt? I felt very insulted, so I had to give her a little bit of some graphical image. At least you can't report me and I said something. At least if I did like this, it can mean anything. Like I'm trying to clean my eyes, but that kind of situation, think about it. She has personal space, personal philosophy. She didn't educate us on how to handle her. And so everybody didn't like her guts. Guess what? At graduation party, this girl wore one kind of dress that when she walked into the hall, everybody froze. You, you can wear XYZ. So you know, I think those are the things that should help us. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, I resist the urge to make any comments on that last example. And
You just high conflict in your house now.
because I know. Okay, I just resist the urge. I just jump and pass. I think
You
this
know when the
this
situation is Okolao.
this is me avoiding conflict. This is me openly avoiding conflict. So, Ugochi, I would ask this as we round off. Just right now, I just avoided conflicts. But when conflicts happen generally, should we run away from it or should we confront it?
Okay, so deciding whether to run away or confront depends on the situation, depends on what exactly you're trying to achieve, what is the outcome. So I would give examples. So if, for example, like now, this situation that just happened here, you've already seen that, okay, so there is really no it's not really productive to just go
Which
on with this.
situation? Which is it? My situation as a situation. Great. Do you want to have a situation here? Yeah, you're being far
Rotimi,
away
allow me
doesn't
to
mean that
concentrate.
you're safe from conflict.
Oh my goodness. So because you don't want it to deteriorate, because you can see that really at the end it's not really that serious. It can be it can get a peaceful resolution without any active contribution, so you can let it go. But if you can see that if this is not resolved, it has a potential to lead to should I say negative outcomes, right? Then it's important that things are addressed. So we can't always run away from conflict. There is a place, there are situations that would determine that, you just ignore, turn a blind eye, and focus on the bigger picture. But there are also situations that determine that both parties have to have a conversation. Now, how do you now have that conversation in a way that does not degenerate to blows or to something else? That's another thing, very important. You've got to be aware of the context. There's one thing I tell people is don't try to resolve a conflict when tempers are still flaring, when everything is still hot. Give some time for it to cool off, and then when everybody's in a calmer state, then everybody presents their issues and focus on the issues, not on person, because you see many times that's actually what annoys people in conflict. You are saying you are not serious, or you don't understand, or you are not so they will take it extra personal. But if we focus on the issue as opposed to the person, it helps the person see that we're not attacking you, we're talking about this issue, against the future or against another occurrence, so something like that. So I think that that's helpful. So like I mentioned at the beginning, situation demands, what you're trying to achieve also determines whether you would avoid or whether you go head on to address it.
Thank you very much for that. I like the way you put it, that there are times that you just let it go. Just a bigger person, as long as it doesn't affect your as long as it doesn't affect you and you don't continue to, let's use the adjective I used this morning, to bemoan it, and then it festers and becomes something more, and particularly separating the person from the situation. So rather than saying, oh, you're a thief, you can say, I don't like the fact that you took my pen without permission. But that clearly separates the
Yeah.
person from what happened. And for in maybe in friendships and in romantic relationships, I think that works a whole lot more, where we are more prone to hurt the people that we love the most by what we say.
Mm.
Thank you very much for your contribution this morning, and for every analyst, everyone who has been here. Thank you very much. To Olushola Olumide Omotola, Mrs. Keifu Ajayi, Ugochi, thank you. For Mr. Rotimi Eyitayo, well, you tried, but I refuse to be dragged into conflict with you this morning. But thank you all the same for being on the show. To every one of our tribe members who have been there, you have been with us from Monday up until today. Thank you very much for being there. We're sure that I won't say we hope. I'm sure that it's been worth your while, and if that is the case, then you need to tell somebody to tell somebody. You need to follow all of our analysts on social media. Follow Good Morning, the Good Morning Education Show on Instagram. Catch the replays. We usually have our top 10 from every show on our Instagram handle. So you want to follow us to catch our top 10 or our 10 from the show, and tell somebody also about it. Next week is another time that promises to deliver another robust and interesting package to you on the Good Morning Education Show. But before we leave, we are sending you off into the weekend in grand style, and the team has something to say to you. If you're regular on the show, you already know it, and please join us this morning from wherever you are to say our payoff line. And if you're new on the show with us, then listen carefully. This is especially for you. So let's go, Tim. At
It's
the count of
all
two, let's go. One, two, let's go. It's always
always
a
a
Good
great
morning.
great
morning
The
morning
good morning
on
on the
the
Good
Good
education.
Morning
Morning
Education Show.
Education Show.
Have a great
Have
day.
a great day ahead and a great weekend too. Bye.
Mhm.
Bye.